Facebook says it has dismantled a Russian network that was interfering in the US election. It alleges the fake news site Peace Data had links to the Russian Internet Research Agency and was targeting left-leaning readers with misinformation about the Biden campaign. It comes just days after the site said it had cracked down on pages and accounts related to right-wing conspiracy theorists known as QAnon. Futurist Mark Pesce says the taking down of Peace Data is significant.
Yeah, this is an incredibly sophisticated attack. The Internet Research Agency, which is this shadowy Russian propaganda bot organization that sort of manufactures propaganda and then distributes it across social networks, they basically used a front organization, which they called Peace Data, which looks innocuous and was actually hiring freelance writers in both the UK and in America to write articles that were basically left-wing. And the writers had no idea that they were working for a Russian propaganda organization, but it's clear that the aims of this IRA group were basically just trying to polarize the American left and therefore influence the election.
So this is another twist on what they were doing in the 2016 election and really quite subtle to a degree. How... I guess what you wonder about is how many sort of versions of the same thing are we going to keep seeing?
And what we can see is this did work for a period of time. So clearly people are going to copy it, whether the IRA is going to copy it or some other group is going to copy it. But this idea of having lots of fronts popping up that can act as intermediaries for the spread of disinformation or really just highly slanted information. And of course, in the political environment in America, it's hungry for that kind of slanted information as well. So it's acting almost as an accelerant to all of this. So I think we will see a lot more of this. And again, they'll probably figure out how to use effectively what are holding companies to separate themselves directly from the influence.
Now, Facebook's handed over the information to the FBI, but is there a lot they can do to stop this and copycat groups popping up?
I think vigilance is probably it, but the question is, how many spot fires can Facebook keep track of at once? They have 2 billion monthly users, all of whom are actively sharing and using the network. If something pops up there, will they immediately know about it? There's only, 10 weeks till the election now? Is there enough time even in there to take that kind of action?
Yes, and of course the timing is critical given the election. Do you think it's critical that both Facebook, Twitter, Instagram really focus on trying to keep shutting these groups? We've got the QAnon group as well that is also quite clever at just reinventing itself.
Yeah, and QAnon is this sort of interesting set of, I guess you could call it conspiracies, almost beliefs. Someone I know is convinced that we're seeing a new 21st century religion kind of emerge out of QAnon. And of course, Facebook and Twitter have been shutting these accounts down. But then these groups, essentially what they do is they code switch. They start using different language to talk about the same things. And then they just set up shop again. And so you basically have this moving target. And once again, you're faced with this whack-a-mole. People are always going to be able to move faster en masse than any big social network can do monolithically. And that's the big thing here, is it's basically all of the Lilliputians attacking Gulliver.
Yeah. One of our reporters tested QAnon and on Twitter. He found himself quickly embroiled in the dark web with extensive referrals and related materials popping up. Once you're in the dark web, can they be stopped at all?
This is an interesting question because the dark web was designed to provide protection to political dissidents who needed to be able to communicate across national boundaries. And so those same protections work for people who are actually trying to dismantle the state as well. And so there's a bit of a paradox there because we want people to have access to those kinds of tools, but at the same time, those tools can be misused.
Now, Facebook has also fired back at the Australian government's push for them to pay for local news. Now, they're saying users will not be able to share news stories. Is this going to work as a tactic, in your view?
I have to wonder who is making this call at Facebook, because the last thing you want to do, if you have the ACCC trying to treat you as a monopoly, the last thing you want to do is publicly claim that you have monopoly power to turn off the news. What are they thinking here? And so I think the question is, and Google did the same thing by posting up all over their websites 2 weeks ago, this is in threat. And all of a sudden, people become very conscious of how deeply interwoven Google is in their lives. And I think if there's a choice between the ACCC and Facebook, most Australians are going to trust the ACCC. And so I feel as though Facebook has really misread the room here.
And as a case, as a test case, really, this kind of little battle playing out between Facebook and the Australian government, is the world watching, the rest of the world watching how it does play out?
We think that's the case, and we certainly think that Facebook and Google think that's the case, and that if we get something that's workable here, that gets money flowing back into our media companies from the billions that Facebook and Google take in advertising revenue, that will then become a model that will be applied particularly in the EU and probably in Asia, and will cut into the revenues of these trillion-dollar companies.
Always good to get your thoughts. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.